As usually happens on a Friday night, I try and give a talk about something which is topical. In other words, to try and show how some traditional Buddhist principles are used to solve the problems of modern life. And last week I talked about that aircraft. I should have really talked about the election. And I was really disappointed that we didn't have an Australian Buddhist party. Because I often thought of trying, an Australian Buddhist party, because one of the first things we'd do, we'd ban all taxes, and instead we'd just have donation boxes and fundraising dinners. And we could, wouldn't that be a wonderful way? Because that's how we survive. We don't charge any taxes or get any money from the government. We survive, and we do pretty well on fundraising dinners and cake stalls and stuff like that. So if we can survive, why can't the government survive? Imagine if they had to buy a new nuclear weapon by getting a cake stall. They'd have to really work hard then. Which actually does remind me to do a plug for where's Lee going, the gala dinner which she is organising to help some of my projects. So she's always sitting out there by herself, the lady in white, looking miserable because she doesn't sell any tickets. Yeah, they're expensive, but for such a wonderful thing, what price is good karma? You can't put a price on it. So therefore, please go and help her out. It's for my 63rd birthday. No reason why it's the 63rd birthday, because that's my third time I've been 21. So that's auspicious. You can always find something auspicious about anything. But we did think of starting an Australian Buddhist party, but we realised it wouldn't work, because one of the first things we'd have to do, because we're Buddhists, is to ban alcohol in Australia. And then we get no preferences at all from any party. But no, the topical thing I was going to talk about today was I was I was asked by some of the Buddhist organizations, what do you think about this proposal, to limit religious vilification or something like that, and against the freedom of speech? And sometimes we can argue and just try and find out, about bad speech and criticizing a person on part of their religion or their race or their sexual orientation. But I don't want to go into that. Instead, I want to just to give this whole idea a different angle. Instead of how to speak properly, tonight's talk is how to listen wisely. So that instead of vilification by speech, is letting vilification happen by listening in a wrong way. Because so often we put the onus on the person giving the speech and talking so they don't offend anybody. So they always say nice and kind things. And you know how difficult that is. I was given a pamphlet on sexual harassment, and most of the jokes which I'd sell, I could go to jail for some of the jokes which I've said here on a Friday night. But there's another thing we should do, not just put the onus on the way you speak, but also take some responsibility on the way you listen. So tonight's speech is about right listening, or listening with some wisdom and kindness. Don't just blame your wife and nag, 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 nag. It's not her fault, it's you're not listening properly. So how do we listen properly? Now, number one, we've got two ears. And the reason why we've got two ears is why? One to go in, one to go out. So that's why if your husband says something nasty to you, the only reason you get upset is because you don't know how to listen wisely. If it's something unpleasant, let it go straight in. Why do you keep it? In one ear, out the other. But if he says something nice to you, put your hand over one ear quickly to keep it in there. It's like wise listening. We got a choice. It's not just the speech which we have to hear. It's how we listen. You got like the dog next door, who barks during the meditation. You got the person somewhere over there who started snoring at the very end. You got the mobile phones which go off. Now, for years I've been trying to stop that. And I've been here for 30 years now, and we haven't been able to stop that once. There's always something happens. So instead of trying to control people's noise, I instead learn how to listen with wisdom, right listening. And I think if we are going to have a law from our government, we should have the law to prohibit vilifying listening, the listening which harms people, listening which diminishes our opinion of another person because we don't listen with wisdom and with compassion. Now, where this actually came from, the core story, the core Buddhist story of how we can listen with wisdom, comes from an old story when I was a monk in Thailand. Now, the old Thai culture, was very down to earth, and when they had a party, not like these days, a party maybe start at 8 o'clock, you're finished by 1. These guys went on for 3 days. And it's absolutely true. Once they got tired, they went to sleep. When they woke up, they started again. So 3-day continuous party. Now that was great fun for them, but our monastery was only about a kilometre and a half from the village. So when they had a party, we heard it. Now there was no electricity in those days, but they had these petrol generators and huge loudspeakers and amplifiers and terrible music. So there was I in my hut trying to meditate, and this blaring music was coming from the village, and you couldn't meditate, you couldn't even go to sleep. And they usually finished about 2 a.m. in the morning. And I had to get up at 3 o'clock, only 1 hour of sleep. So all of the monks, after the first night of this, we were just so tired. And so we thought, look, have to, bit of live and let live. Why don't we ask, the villagers, can you please stop at 1 o'clock, say, give us 2 hours of sleep, okay, please. Not live and let live, as I wrote in my book, sleep and let sleep, okay. But the headman said no, he wouldn't listen to us. So then we decided to go and see our master, Ajahn Brahm, because he was really respected and people were afraid of him. And we realized if Ajahn Brahm told the villagers to give these monks a couple of hours sleep, they would have to. But when we went to see our master, we, instead of getting a sort of a remedy for our sleeplessness, he gave us a remedy for something much, much deeper. Because he told us this famous little one-liner, which was the best thing about being with a great master, just one-liners. He said, monks, it's not the noise that disturbs you, it's you who disturb the noise. And that was such a powerful teaching. It wasn't the noise disturbing us, it was our reaction to the noise. That was the problem. And I remember telling that to one of the monks, he's not here, not this one, but another monk. His brother was visiting him, and there was not enough space for him to stay at our monastery. So he asked, can he stay in the same room with me? So, well, it's your brother, can't see why not. But I told him, because he said that he grew up with his brother, lived in the same room with his brother when he was growing up. But I said, that's not the same as when you're in your 50s. He will snore, and so will you. He said, no, it's okay. Of course, I'm always right. The first rule of our monastery, the abbot is always right. And when he's wrong, go back to rule number 1. And of course, I was right. As soon as his brother went to sleep first and started snoring. And this monk, of course, he couldn't get to sleep. Once one person starts, how hard it is to snore? You may be staying with someone who starts snoring at night, but fortunately, monks have got we've got the goods on how to deal with problems. So straight away he thought of, this great teaching of Ajahn Brahm. It's not the noise that disturbs you, it's me disturbing the snoring. And what did he mean by that? What he did, he started to change his perception of the snoring. He told me the next day he started to imagine that the snoring was like, some like symphony by Beethoven. Or, some sort of modern music, which I can't understand. But, the great crescendo of the snore as the air was coming in. And the woodwinds as it goes out. And he could actually do this. He played with his perceptions. And soon, it only took him a few minutes, your imagination, your power of imagination is huge. And he started perceiving this snoring as this state-of-the-art, cutting-edge modern music. And then the next thing he knew, he woke up in the morning having had this beautiful, calm, peaceful sleep, because he just changed his perception of a snore from something being irritating to something being beautiful. And that's how, I look at the dogs when they bark. Sometimes you say, why that bloody dog is barking, he always barks at the wrong time, just as I'm about to get enlightened and the dog barks. If there'd been dogs around when the Buddha was around, he wouldn't have got enlightened, we wouldn't have anything. But no, that's not how you look at it. You can actually look at that and perceive the barking of a dog. You can listen with compassion and wisdom. That dog is just so happy barking. You've ever seen a dog bark? They really enjoy it. It's like you singing in the car. You enjoy it. Please keep your windows down because no one else likes to hear it, but you really enjoy it. So the dog's having fun, so you have wonderful compassion. The dog's enjoying itself. Oh, isn't that wonderful? Isn't that lovely? I enjoy it when other people are happy, so the dog's really happy, so I'm happy. When I change the perception, the whole sound is not irritating anymore. It's beautiful, it's lovely. That's how we mean the sound doesn't disturb us. It's we disturb the sound. And that gives us power over sound. We can actually listen with wisdom. So if somebody vilifies me and says, you lazy bludger, Ajahn Brahm, you're a loser, I say, wow, you are so correct. Because I am a loser. I've lost all my money, all my possessions, and all my hair, all my youth. I used to be very thin and good looking, I've lost that too. And I lost all these defilements. That's what we're supposed to do as a monk. We're supposed to lose things so we can live very simply. I've lost all my past and all my future, all my problems. I lost all my worries. I'm a big loser. So that way, when somebody tries to offend me, I just look at it in a different way. Which means you're not allowing the sound to disturb you. You're not disturbing the sound. That's all it is. And if somebody really gets on at me and just says, those jokes you keep on telling every week, same joke every week, why can't you think of another joke? So what I do, I just listen to them. And I don't disturb their sound. Oh, poor things. They really need to get this off their chest. So please come and just say some more. And when you actually do that, when you don't get offended at what they say, it's amazing just how they calm down and become very peaceful. And they say afterwards, Ajahn Brahm, you're so wise. I never said anything. I just sat here. Oh yeah, but that's so wise. You don't have to say very much to be wise these days. You just need to not react. So when you don't disturb the sound like that, people just can't vilify you. They can't upset you. They can't diminish you. Simply because you know how to listen. A lot of times that's our problem. It's not what other people say, it's how we hear. And if somebody is really ranting at you and shouting at you, and sometimes I wonder, why do people do that anyway? They only do that, they only shout at you and they scream at you and they curse you because they are in a terrible bad mood. What they say says more about them than it ever says about you, as the old saying goes. So when somebody's really shouting and criticizing me, it's telling me a lot about how they feel. Oh, the poor person. They must be in such a bad mood. Such a terrible thing must have happened to them today. They must be so sick. They must be so in pain. Poor thing, come here. And you give them a big hug after they called you all sorts of bad names. Because that is one of the core stories which I remember. This is, again, not from Buddhism, from Christianity. You probably heard this a couple of weeks ago, but please, it's not this old story that disturbs you, it's you disturb the old story. About the old story from Franciscan tradition about the monk, a disciple of St. Francis, who went out one morning on alms round. They went on alms round too, just begging for food. And he saw this really, really, really poor man who said, "Why are you begging for me? You got more than I've got," which was true. These were monks, friars in the 13th century. And this was, at least he stayed in a sort of a monastery. This poor guy was living out on the streets, had absolutely nothing, was just wearing rags. He said, "Look at me, I'm wearing rags, you're wearing a nice robe." And this monk said, "My goodness, you're right. I've got more than you. Here you are, take my robe." And so this monk gave the robe he was wearing to a poor man. Now that is really a good spiritual leader. The problem was, though, that the monk, that's all he had on. And now a lot of you are asking, "What have you got underneath my robes?" I don't want to show you because I get arrested. There's nothing underneath. And so this monk went back to the monastery totally naked. And as soon as he went into the door, they said, "Get out of here. This is a monastery, not a place for deviant, naked people like you. We don't like weirdos in our monastery." And he said, "Look, it's me, I'm one of your monks." "Yeah, sure, where's your robe?" And they started to recognize his voice, and they realized it was one of the monks. And they took him in and said, "What happened to you? Did you get robbed? Did you get assaulted? You've lost your robe." He said, "No, I just gave it away to a person more poor than I was." And all the other monks in that monastery thought, "Wow, that is someone who actually practices what he preaches. That's a real good monk. Well, how wonderful it would be." Now, when I'm telling this story, don't go asking for my robe after this. You have still got more than I've got. So they gave him another robe. Now the problem was that, the word gets around amongst the beggar community and others. And the word went around that this monk was a bit soft in the head. That's what they thought. So the next day when he went on alms round with a new robe, another person said, "Oh, I'm so poor, look at me, I've only got rags." And so this monk gave his robe away again. The robes were quite expensive. It was like a scam, which people use sometimes to get things to sell. They weren't really poor. But this monk was so generous, and they knew he was generous, so they got his robe a second time. And this time when he came in naked, they knew who he was. "Okay, come in. We'll get you another robe." And that happened a third time. After it happened a third time, of course, that was getting a bit too much. So they gave him a new robe, and he got summoned into the abbot's office. And the abbot sort of scolded him for over an hour, saying, "Look, you're being taken advantage of. Great the first time, that was beautiful, but these people know that you give them your robe, and they're not poor at all, and these robes cost a lot of money, and we only get a few donated by people. We can't expect our people to keep on giving us robes all the time. You're being stupid. Now don't do that again. It's good to be kind, but you're being stupid. You can't do that." And this abbot just really gave it to him for over an hour. And all the time this monk just put his head down and listened. He never tried once to justify himself. And after the hour, when the abbot thought he taught this young monk a lesson, it's all right to be generous, but you have to be wise as well, he let the monk go. Quarter of an hour later, that monk who'd been scolded was knocking on the abbot's door with a cup of soup. And the abbot said, what are you bringing me a cup of soup for?" And this monk said, "Sir, you've been shouting at me for over an hour. Your voice must be hoarse. This is to help your sore throat." And this fellow wasn't trying to be clever. That's actually how he felt. When he was being scolded, he never thought 1 second about himself. He thought, that poor guy shouting at me must be a very sore throat by now. And so he got a cup of soup for him. And after that moment, the abbot totally gave up. Okay, you can give whatever else you want away. It's a waste of time scolding you. You don't listen to the scolding. All you listen to is just the pain in my voice. What a beautiful lesson that was. So please remember that. If your wife, she scolds you when you come home because you're late and you've forgotten the anniversary, and as soon as she stopped, go and get her a cup of soup. She must have a sore throat by now. But the main thing is you're not thinking of yourself, you're listening and you're seeing that person who is shouting at you, being so angry at you and trying to upset you, they must be hurting. That's the reason they do that. Just why would anyone get angry at somebody else and shout at them and try and hurt them? Because they're hurting themselves. That's the only reason why. So when you learn how to listen properly, when somebody is vilifying you, cursing you, shouting at you, you listen properly, you just got compassion for that person. If you have a boss at work who's like that, always shouting at you and never praising you at all, remember, then that great story, this was actually adapted from a wise piece of advice by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. You only have to put up with that boss for maybe 4, 5, 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. And over the Easter, you don't have any trouble with the boss. But that boss has to live with himself or herself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for all their life. Poor things. If they've got a head like that, a mind like that, they're not just criticizing you, they'll be criticizing themselves and everything else about their life. Because as you look at others, that's how you look at yourself. So the poor person, to have to live with themselves like that, oh, you poor thing, boss, have a cup of soup. Now you understand a little bit about what wise listening is. You don't just listen and be so selfish to think about yourself. Please think about the other person as well. And don't take it so personally. If it really was your fault, if you really were that lazy worker, a bad person, you get criticized by everybody. You don't. There's some people who love you and praise you and think you're just so wonderful. There's only some people who criticize you and shout at you and call you a bludger or something, whatever it is. So it can't be true. So never allow the opinions of others to define who you are. People can say all sorts of things about who I am, but I don't listen. I'm the only one who knows who I am and why I do things, whether I've done things wrong or right, whether I've been lazy or being diligent. You don't know. You can't know. So how on earth can you judge me? That's how you should think. So whatever anybody says about you is what they're saying about themselves, nothing about you. There's only one person who knows who you are, and that is you. And just the great thing which I say, just always give yourself the benefit of the doubt. The old story of the trees, there's not a straight tree in the forest. There's not a good person, perfectly good here, but you're good enough. That's a wonderful thing to know. I am good enough. So whatever anyone else says about me, that's their problem. Nothing to do with me. So that way I have a wise listening. But sometimes though, I don't accept criticism these days. Many of you know that. You try and criticize me and tell me off, but I don't pay any attention to it, so it's a waste of time. Don't do it. It's a waste of time. That's the other thing. If you keep not paying attention to criticism, then after a while people won't give it to you anymore. So when your wife keeps shouting you, just don't listen, don't do anything. Then she'll stop, maybe. Or your husband. But we do listen to praise. Now that's one of people's faults these days. Yes, criticism, we listen to that. Praise, that's what goes in one ear and out the other. It's absolutely ridiculous. We are so unused to listening to compliments that when somebody gives it to us, we think, they're crazy, what do they want, what are they trying to sell us? So we always reject compliments. Now this is one of the key stories which I learned from. I learned these teachings from real life. Some years ago, that's right, 2004 I think it was, I was given an award by Curtin University, the John Curtin Medal. And that was actually quite a big sort of compliment to me. And it was, what was it for? It was for vision, community service and leadership. Exemplified by the wartime Prime Minister of Australia, John Curtin. And I thought they were crazy. What do you mean vision? I have to wear glasses. Community service, that's what you do when you get released from prison. So it can't be any of those. So it must be for leadership, I don't know why. But anyway, have this big ceremony over in Curtin University, and the Vice-Chancellor giving you this big medal, and you always have to give a speech. So when I gave my speech for receiving the John Curtin Medal of 2004, my speech was, it's a great honor, but I'm very surprised. I never thought I would get a medal like this, because I know there's many more people in the community who do much more work than I do. And anyway, I couldn't have done this without the help of all my friends, and supporters, people like you. So thank you anyway, but basically I don't deserve it. That's what I said. And then the next year I went to another medal ceremony it was actually Professor Josky from Charlie Gardner's Hospital. And when I heard what he did, I was really inspired. This guy, if you don't know his story, he was the head of hematology in Charlie Gardner's Hospital. And he had a lot of work with cancer patients, realized that they were getting really good care with chemotherapy, surgery, radiation therapy, but no real aftercare. No one was really being kind to them. You get in there, get your chemotherapy, and out you go afterwards. So he started this alternative therapy center, which is apparently still there in Charlie Gardner's Hospital, where anyone who's got any treatment for cancer can go there for free and get a foot massage, Reiki, homeopathy, anything weird you can get in that place. It's not weird, I'm just saying that was a joke. Because he got a lot of criticism from his peers. You're supposed to be a scientist. You're supposed to be a trained doctor. Why are you allowing this in your hospital? And he said, because it works. Don't know why it works when you have a foot massage, but I know why it works. Someone is caring for you for half an hour. They're giving you some compassion for half an hour. And that, I know, is so great therapy. And of course, he had to do the research to see, whether there was any improvement in the health of the people who went to the alternative therapy rather than the other. And the results were incredible. That people got so much better. Their radiation therapy was far more effective when they had Reiki afterwards, or whatever it was. And that's why he was given this medal. He put his reputation as a scientist, as a top doctor, on the line for his beliefs to help people with cancer. And when I heard that, I thought, wow, what a great man. And then he went up to receive his medal, and he said, I don't know why you've given me this medal. There's other people in the community who do more work than I've done, and I couldn't have achieved it without the help of all my friends. Basically, that's what he said. I said, that was my speech. I gave that one last year. And so does everyone else when you get some award. And I went out from that, after that ceremony from Professor Josky, thinking, hang on, why is it that I can't receive praise? Because a lot of very intelligent people did their research before they gave me my medal, and before they gave other people, even Josky's medal. Why is it he couldn't say what I knew, that he damn well deserved that medal? Well done. And from that moment on, I realized that wise listening is receiving praise and never rejecting it. If someone tells you, thank you for helping out, it's so wonderful what you did, they have decided you needed that. And to say, oh no, it's nothing, is just being offensive to that person, saying that they are wrong, but I don't deserve it. It's disrespect, and it's also, it destroys one of the most beautiful parts of human speech, when we praise one another. So from this time on, that day on, whenever anyone said, wow, that was a very good speech, Ajahn Brahm, I said, yes, it was. And I don't know why people laugh when I receive praise. So you do that as well when your boss says, good work. You say, yes, it was good work. You are such a wise boss, you appreciate my great... Because what is actually happening there? You are starting to encourage praise in our world. Praise is rejected so much that people don't bother to give it anymore. Why tell people, thank you so much for what you did? We say, oh, it was nothing. I'm not going to give you praise anymore if that's how you deal with it. Criticism, okay, fair enough, I did the wrong thing, I'll try better next time. But praise is something we don't accept. Which is why one of the great ways of stopping vilification and bad speech in this world is not by legislation, it's by letting people start to celebrate and respect good speech, and especially praise as well. When was the last time you praised a Prime Minister of Australia? Why are you laughing? They're not all bad. You keep criticising them, that's what you get. It's your fault, not theirs. So you start praising, and it actually works. It's amazing what you get when you praise. One of our monks, he went to stay in a hospital somewhere, and afterwards he sent a letter of thank you to the Minister of Health in Western Australia. Thank you so much. Your nurses, your doctors did such a great job. I think it was McGuinty, I think. And he got a letter back by return of post. So, handwritten, not one of these things done by one of his goons in the office. The real letters written by him, signed by him. Thank you so much. It's so rare to receive some praise like that. It really works. Years ago, one of my old stories, we were building Bodhinyana Monastery down at Serpentine. 30 years ago this was. We had no money, and so I had to sort of learn how to do all the building work, and I did the plumbing for the ablution block, which is still there. It still works. 30 years, hasn't blocked once. See, I'm a really good plumber. Sort of, you see. I am. See, I receive the praise, yes. But I didn't know anything about plumbing. So all I did, and I don't mind this, Galvin's plumbing service, I went to the shop in Osborne Park, put the plans on the table and said, help. And one of these guys, I always remember him, called Fred. Fred looked at the plans, said, oh, you do it this way and that way, just so simple with glue, common sense. And so from his advice, there's a big order, for a whole ablution block. So, it was worth his while spending time with me. And then, I did it all myself. And then he had to get it checked by the council health inspector. And that was a big worry. But it passed first time. And I was so happy. And that was the day we got the bill. And I got a check from the treasurer. And I sent the check off to Galvin's with a little note saying, and thank you so much to Fred, who really helped me, finish off this job. And I sent the check off. Now, I don't know much about these things. I was a simple monk. I thought it would just go to the shop and just get banked straight away. But they have a special accounts department. It's got many stores, I think, throughout Australia. So it's a big business, Galvin's Plumbing. And so I sent the check with this, and the accounts department saw there was a note with the check. I thought, oh God, another complaint. Because apparently the only time they get letters is for complaints. And they read it, and it was actually a compliment. So they took it to the head of their accounts department. I got this later on. They took it to the head of the accounts department who read it and said, wow, amazing, a compliment. They took it to the CEO of the whole company. And the CEO read it and straight away got on the telephone to Fred at Osborne Park branch. Now, can I speak to Fred? And so Fred, oh God, what's going on? The CEO talking to me? And this CEO he just praised Fred. Thank you so much. I just got a letter of compliment from one of your clients. That is how we want to run our business. Customer service. Well done, Fred. This is what we really want. And what salary are you on? Or it can always be a bit more. I will see to that, Fred, from the CEO. And I knew that because about an hour after that conversation, I had to go into the shop, to change a part. And as soon as they saw me, Fred's mate, I think his boss said, he actually said, "Oh, your wife's coming in," because that was what he meant by someone who was kind to him. And as soon as Fred saw me, this is absolutely true, I will never forget this. There was 2 plumbers in front of me in line for service. 2 really big guys, what plumbers are like, really strong, big guys with tats and everything else. But Fred said, "Brahm, come over here." I was served before these 2 big guys. They were really upset. But that's not my fault. "What do you want?" And that's when his friend told me what had happened. The CEO just called him an hour early and gave him a big pay rise. "What do you want, Brahm?" And I got really big service, and I said, "I need to change a part." He said, "Come around the back." I said, "Look, there's a sign there. Not even the plumbers are allowed to buy in the back, but you are. Come in." And I had this part, I needed one bigger. So he found it for me, and I said, "Well, what's the difference? Because it's a much bigger part." And he smiled at me, and he said, "Brahm, for you, no difference." And it was such a lovely afternoon. Not only did our Buddhist society save a lot of money, we had this beautiful exchange just because I sent a stupid little letter. It wasn't a stupid letter, it was a really nice letter of praise. So this is one of the reasons why, just praise each other for goodness sake. And then there's no more vilification, turning people off. We can praise each other and be kind to one another. But I mean to get this. It was a beautiful photograph taken when I was in Indonesia, was it in March? Just a bit over 6 weeks ago. There was this Muslim guy in Indonesia, with a full turban and everything on. You'd think he was a terrorist, and as some of you guys. But, he came to listen to my talk. We're talking together. He really likes my books. And so we had our arms around each other. We had this photograph, a Buddhist monk and an Islamic cleric. It's a beautiful photograph. I saw it afterwards and thought, wasn't that something which we need to see in our world? Respecting and praising one another. And then if you do things like that, there's no way they could ever bomb sort of Bodhinyana Monastery or Dhammaloka Centre, because I've got mates, who sort of know people. That is the way to have no vilification, by going out of your way to make contacts, to praise one another and get you good friends. It's amazing I'm going to tell this story. These are true stories. Sometimes you think I make them up, the jokes I make up, but these ones are true. Just where I sit over there, one evening, this Chinese guy came up and he wanted to speak to me, Ajahn Brahm, and said, "Yeah, how can I help you?" Absolutely true. He said, "I am a member of the Chinese triads in Perth," he said. And I got very scared because these guys mean business. And he said, "But don't get worried. I know that you really look after the Chinese community in Perth. So I've been told by the boss to come and see you. If you have any trouble, just contact us. We'll sort it out." That actually happened. So a little bit of kindness and praise, just you really have a great time in life. So that's really true. So be careful. Don't have any criticism to me. Make sure you get a ticket from Lee for the gala dinner. If you don't, I can't guarantee. No, I don't mean things like that. We would never do things like that. But this is what we mean by really nice speech. And so when we have nice speech and right listening, that's what I was really getting into. Please, when there is praise, listen to it. When there is things you don't like, change your perception. That person who's speaking to you, they must be just having a really bad day. They may be really upset. Now, your poor husband, he's come home, he's probably got done by the police, for speeding, or something's gone wrong. Your poor wife, she must be sort of having a bit of a bad day. But don't take it personally. Have some compassion and kindness when people say rotten things to you. And that way you have right listening. You're actually looking for the good in person's speech, and the bad you're just letting disappear. And if you just collect the good in life, this is positive thinking, remember? Positive hearing as well. Look at snoring, the beautiful dog. Isn't that nice? Why have you shut up now? You see, because I'm praising the dog, he becomes quiet. When you have ideas like that, your listening becomes so positive, so kind. Somebody just says some nasty thing to you, they just don't understand, never mind. Later on they will get better. It says more about them, never says anything about me. They're in a bad mood, or maybe they're not educated, maybe they haven't really understood what's really going on. They just jump to a conclusion which is not really necessary. That way that you are never troubled by other people's speech. Exactly. And you're going to always look at something, anything, in a beautiful way. That is the whole message. And if somebody, they can't upset you there. That means no one can control you. But you always accept praise, because praise is the positive reinforcement of life. They're actually saying something beautiful. That is need to be celebrated and paid lots of attention to, because it's a well-known psychological fact. Whatever you pay attention to, whatever you acknowledge, that is what grows in the world. The old story, watering flowers or watering weeds in the garden, which one will grow? You water the weeds, weeds grow. So if you pay too much attention to negativity, you listen to the negativity and you don't sort of give it the benefit of the doubt or let it go so easily, the negativity in your life will grow. That's what I said, if your husband argues with you, if you react to it, it will grow and get worse. But if you react instead to the kindness, the goodness, the praise, and you give a lot of praise as well, and they praise you, say, oh, thank you, yeah, I deserve that. I really did go out of my way to help this evening. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's true, I really deserve that. Then you're actually encouraging the flowers in life. You're making the life a very beautiful place. And you will find that your politicians will start to behave in a much more beautiful way when you praise their beauty, when you listen beautifully. So it's not a case of just, thinking, these politicians in Parliament, look at the way they speak to each other. It's not the way they speak to each other which is the problem, it's the way they listen to each other. Just like in life. Beautiful. And that becomes wise listening. And thank you so much for listening. You did a great job today. Do you deserve that?
Yes.
Very good, thank you. Okay, now let's have some questions, comments or complaints. I don't think anyone would deserve to have a complaint after a talk like that. But anyway, we'll see what's going on from overseas. Here we go, see who's the first question over here. Let's see. Okay, very good. The first question is from, the head of the Taliban in Afghanistan. Wonderful talk, Ajahn Brahm. Wouldn't that be wonderful? It's from California. Okay, here we go. As a young woman with symptoms of schizophrenia and bipolar tendencies, I find myself vilifying myself constantly. The feeling I cannot stand it any longer terrifies me. I do not know how to address this since the problem is in the mind itself. No. There is no such a person who has schizophrenia. They're not a schizophrenic. They're a person who has episodes of schizophrenia. There is no, I get into trouble for this, but I am willing to stand by this. There's no such person who's bipolar. You have times when you exhibit what's called bipolar behavior, but you are not bipolar. You're not schizophrenic. There's more to you than that. And this is the amazing thing. I I knew this a long time ago, and when I found this professor of schizophrenia in Singapore who had precisely the same view, and I asked him, how do you treat schizophrenia in Singapore? He said, I don't treat schizophrenia in Singapore. I treat the other part of the patient, which is not schizophrenic. And I was just so impressed. It's almost, I love telling that story because that is going to help so much. When we don't keep calling a person, you're psychotic. There's no such thing as a psychotic person. It's a person who sometimes has psychotic behavior episodes. So when you see the other part of you from California, you're a young woman, brilliant, stop there. And there's a huge amount to you. The schizophrenia and bipolar tendency is a tiny part of you. Don't overemphasize them. As I keep on saying, I said this before and I say this to you all now, how big is the hand? My hand is so big I can't see anything in the whole world other than my hand. I put it where it belongs, at the end of my arm. The hand hasn't diminished in size at all. But now I can see so much more. It's just a perspective issue. So your schizophrenic episodes or bipolar episodes, don't hold them straight up to you so that's all you can see. The young woman from California, there's so much more of you than that. You start recognizing the other part of you, the beautiful part of you. And then it doesn't terrify you anymore. You realize there's so much more to you. And there is. I'm not just saying this to build you up. It is true. And that means you're not terrified anymore, and you start paying attention to the times when there is no schizophrenia in your mind. There is no sort of bipolar in your mind. Pay attention to those times, and they will grow. You are watering the flowers at last. And that's what that professor of schizophrenia told me in Singapore. What results have you got by this treatment? So much better than conventional therapies. By watering the flowers, not just focusing so much on the weeds. Try that in California. It's powerful, but it works. And now from Japan. To be able to realize the Dhamma when listening to a discourse by the Buddha, do you need to have perfect stillness of mind, or does it just happen by itself? Yes, yes. You need stillness of mind, and it happens by itself. It's not an or. Okay, because this is a deeper teaching, nothing to do with what I've been, it has actually something to do with what I've been talking about this evening. Learning how to listen properly instead of talking. Because a lot of times we're very good at talking, but how many people really know how to listen without vilifying, without criticizing? To be able to listen to your body without telling it off. Stupid body, you ache. Why are you aching? Don't do it again. Be kind to your body. Listen to it with kindness, not with negativity. Listen to your mind with kindness, not with negativity. Stupid mind. Can't stay in the present moment. Always thinking about the past, always thinking about the future. I can't stop thinking. Rah, 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 rah. Tell your mind, oh mind, thank you for thinking. It's so wonderful you're going to the present moment again. You are really kind. If you're like that with your mind, then your mind likes to stay with you. Who likes to stay with someone who's always telling you off? If you've got a boss from hell, do you invite them home for the Easter break? Do you tell your boss, oh, where are you going? Come with me. No one does that. But if you've got a really kind boss, of course you like to hang out with them. Anyone who's kind to you, you like to spend time with. If you are kind to your mind likes to hang out with you. It doesn't wander off anymore. For those of you meditating, the only reason you can't stay still is because your mind is terrified of you. Oh, not her again. Jesus, she just gives me such a hell when I don't... And of course it runs away from you. So if you want to be still, then you have to be kind. Be kind to your mind. Treat it as a friend. Treat the pains in your body as a friend. treat the stupidity inside of you as a friend. If from California, treat your schizophrenia as a friend, not as someone who terrifies you. And if you do that, it's amazing just how the mind gets very still. And this is actually how you're understanding. Listening to a discourse by the Dhamma, how do you actually realize the Dhamma? You're realizing it. It is not a thing that a light bulb comes up and then you sort of, oh, now I know everything about the Dhamma, about Buddhism, and so I can go and teach everybody and more thoughts and more words. No, it's learning how to be at peace, how to be still, how to be content, how to have peace of mind. And is peace of mind a thought? Peace of mind is what happens when the thinking stops. When you learn how to listen instead of speaking. We all know how to speak, but how many of us know how to listen? And I've taught you today how to listen. And then you know how to realize peace of mind. The dog barks, peace of mind. The husband goes, "Rah, rah, 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 rah." Peace of mind. That's how we get peace of mind. It's not the noise disturbs us. It's we who disturb the noise. Or as the Buddha says, the world argues with me, but I don't argue with the world. That is realizing the Dhamma. Okay, that's just a bit of extra there. So anyone got any questions from the floor about vilifying listening? Yes, go on, okay. These are school teachers, I get in trouble now.
Well, as a school teacher, I tend to try to, if I have a criticism, I try to, give a bit of praise first, so that they're actually absorbing it. But the real question is like, I'm just taking you to task on the comment that if somebody criticizes you and it's only one or two people, not everyone, then it can't be true. Because it may be a constructive criticism, and really you're just trying to help that person out. But I do agree that if you criticize them, even if it's constructive, and if this is all you're doing, then you probably won't get through to that person. So I do take that on.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? We always call it constructive criticism, but most criticism is probably the opposite, it's destructive.
I agree.
Most of it is, yeah. We don't never call it destructive criticism, though, do we? But praise is always constructive. Praise is very rarely destructive, which is, again, this is an old psychology with children. The positive reinforcement for children, done many, many times, it's just so difficult to do in a schoolroom, though. It just takes too many resources, it's too hard to do. If you give children a task and you punish them if they do something wrong, you scold them and tell them off, or you do the other way, every time they make a mistake you just ignore it, but when they do it right you give them a prize, you praise them. They always learn much faster through positive reinforcement. It's such a hard thing to do, but it works. That's why we have prizes at schools. And sometimes we say, we shouldn't give prizes at school. Of course you give prizes at school, but give prizes to everybody somewhere or other. That's why I did the thing about the guy who comes bottom of the class. They get the Bodhisattva prize for being the most humble in the whole school and the one with the least ego.
Yeah, I agree. I do feel that sometimes if somebody is doing something wrong, then you have to actually tell them that, especially if it's affecting other people, you have to let them know. And you can't always give praise all the time. That's all that I was saying.
Yeah, you can't, but it's great if when they don't do anything wrong, if you can praise them for that.
I agree.
And then that really sort of gives them a big boost. They don't do anything wrong anymore, basically. So it's praising rather than blaming all the time is really good. If we can possibly do it. I know there are some kids in school, no matter how many you criticize them, how much you blame them, they still misbehave. And then you ask why. Still remember a kid, No, so my best friend I grew up with, he became a school teacher in Wandsworth Comprehensive School. It was really the bottom of the pile, next to Brixton. One of the worst places in London, really rough kids. And he, in the morning class, one of the kids, the 13 or 14-year-olds, came into the class and spat at the teacher. He went on the floor and missed the teacher. And my friend said, clean that up. And the kid said, F off, straight away. So went straight to the principal. And half an hour later, an hour later, the principal came around with his arm around the kid. Do you realize that last night his father beat up his mother so badly she's in hospital and the father's in jail? He said, geez, I didn't know that. But when you actually find out why kids misbehave, that kid who just, his mother, who the only person who cared for him and protected him and loved him, was beaten to a pulp the night before, and his father was in prison. So sometimes when you get to why kids do this, sometimes you realize just criticizing them is not going to help. But it's hard to do that. And you don't have the resources to find out. But anyway, that was an anecdote which really made me think. Sorry, over here.
Thank you. I'd just like to pick up on that comment about teaching. The last school that I was teaching in, which was in Thailand actually, the principal had a policy of going around the classes, and he would go up to the teacher and say, which kid is doing a really good thing today?
Oh yeah.
And I would say, well, this kid's done something, and he would give them, a merit and praise them, and that was a really, really positive way of motivating the students.
It does, yeah. It's great that you can actually do that.
Behavior.
It's brilliant, yeah. So don't just give. Don't give the prize for the kid who comes top in maths. Give a kid for the one who's trying the best, most improvement prize, and things like that are really brilliant to have. Or the kid who's the kindest in class. So I agree with you there. But also, when you do praise the kids, please tell the kids to receive it. Because that's one of our problems. Any praise, we just throw it away. And so after a while, we just don't praise anymore. So thank you. That's a brilliant question. Thank you. And that was a really great question from you too. Okay, so let's finish off for tonight. And pay respects to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and then we can go do what we need to do.